Welcome to Friends with Fertility, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of fertility, reproductive health, and all the emotional journeys that are in between. I'm your host, Elizabeth King, a fertility expert dedicated to providing you with the knowledge, support, and inspiration you need on your path to parenthood. Whether you're just starting out, exploring your options, or looking for solidarity and advice, we are here for you. Let's embark on this journey together and turn uncertainty into empowerment and make friends with fertility. Let's get started. Hello, my beautiful friends. I am super excited to talk with Lisa Williams today. She is an accomplished author of books on mediumship and spirituality, including Survival of the Soul, Life Among the Dead, Was That a Sign from Heaven, and her newest book, Divine Wisdom. In addition to her own television show on Lifetime, which I was addicted to at the time, Lisa has appeared on programs including Keeping Up with the Kardashians, Jimmy Kimmel Live, Anderson Cooper 360, and the Oprah Winfrey Show. In 2013, she also launched the Lisa Williams International School of Spiritual Development, committed to delivering world-class spiritual learning opportunities with her unique hands-on method of teaching. She is an amazing soul, and this is a very unique podcast, because it really is a question answer from myself to Lisa about all the things we ever wanted to know about our spirit babies, what happens to them, etc., etc. And I know for myself, when I was going through it, understanding this side of things with the spiritual realm really helped me heal in a very, very deep way. So I hope you all get a lot of healing yourselves from this and enjoy myself and Lisa Williams with some great Q&A around spirit babies. So let's start with Megan's questions. First, she says, how do you connect with spirit babies?
For me, I personally set my intention. I connect with them exactly how I would connect with a spirit. So I set my intention. I open my connection up to the spirit world. So it's like this. I imagine that opening the door. And I start the connection normally with adults, first of all, and the adults will lead me into spirit babies. But sometimes the spirit babies for a medium it can be a very soft link, if that makes any sense. It's almost like it's not if you imagine a thick piece of rope and a thin piece of hair, the connection is like the thin piece of hair.
Okay.
And so what I do is I connect in and I'm like, oh, and it's softer. And then suddenly it's, as I connect in it, there's almost this connection of love. It's like this real bond of love. And that's when I start the connection. It's super interesting. Some mediums have to look for it. But some people, they just come to me. And honestly, it's been something for me that they've just come to.
Okay. What messages do spirit babies typically convey? Are they common themes or messages that they share with their parents?
Yeah, they're very common themes. Mostly is, don't worry, it wasn't my time.
Okay.
The other is, I'm fine. We also get a lot of, especially if it was abortions, you made the right decision.
Okay.
And a lot of the times, I'm looking after you, I'm your guardian angel. So there's a lot of themes. Those are the themes that we get.
Okay. And does it matter the hair versus the rope difference if it was a late term loss versus an early loss? So, if it was like a 6 to 10 week versus a 25 week loss or a stillbirth, let's say.
For me, I think baby is a soul. So
right.
I think it matters to me if it was 3 weeks, 10 weeks, a month, 2 months, 5 months.
Right.
For instance, today, I had one today where the baby was very solid. Now, here's the other part of it. And this is the other part as a medium. If you as the mom or the parent still maintain a relationship, as in you talk to that baby, you embrace that baby in your life, you will have, for me, a much stronger connection than someone who didn't, who just wiped it away from their memory.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. That's what I've seen too. How do spirit babies perceive their brief time in the physical world? Do they express any understanding or purpose behind their short lived experience?
So it's interesting because all they know is love. All spirit babies know is love. They don't know anything other than that. And so because they haven't come to the earth plane sometimes, they don't have an understanding of it. So, in retrospect, there is nothing that they carry with them. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
Soul is not coming into the physical world. Now, they will absolutely make reference to the physical world. I knew that you were not in a healthy relationship, or that you were still at school, or that you had stress and things like that. Or
Hmm.
they will sometimes relate to that, but they never came to that world. So that's how I look at it.
Question that I got this week was her husband was surprised he wasn't ready to have the baby yet, and she got pregnant, but then they ended up losing it. And so she's wondering, was that because he wasn't ready?
No, it's never because he wasn't ready. When spirit come into the earth plane, so let's talk at it on a much broader scale. When spirit come into the earth, it's as though we as physical human beings have made a contract before we come to the earth. I made a contract with my husband before we came to the earth plane. We're going to connect, boom. And that's where the souls connect. Now, if it was in their life contract to have a child, they would have that child. But if it wasn't in their life contract, just because the husband didn't want the child, it doesn't mean that it's not actually now said to him, oh, you know what, maybe I do want a child now. And that may be the turning point that is needed. So I don't feel that it was because of her husband.
Okay. Can spirit babies provide guidance or comfort to their parents? How do they help in the healing process for those who have experienced a miscarriage?
So I'm going to take that twice in two sections. So you might have
Uh-huh.
to. So can they guide? No, they can't really guide. Spirit's never really going to guide you. They're not going to tell you what to do, but they'll always bring comfort. Like, I'm okay. I'm here. I'm well. So I think a lot of the times it's how the parent relates to them. Are they going to embrace that passing? Are they going to create a relationship with them? And if that is the case, then you can create a beautiful bond, even though they haven't come into the spirit world and into the earth plane, and utilize that spirit bond. You bring that spirit bond, and there is a lot of comfort, a lot of healing, meditation, trusting, believing, speaking to them, forming a bond in such a powerful way.
How do you interpret the communication from spirit babies? Are there symbolic meanings or signs you look for? Or maybe that the parents should look for, I guess.
So for me, I would say the way that I communicate, I make it more on a feeling. I also hear a lot, so I go feeling and hearing. I may see the odd little thing, but for parents, I would absolutely say look for the signs. Create a conversation with a spirit baby. Ask for signs, and it could be feathers. You'll often find feathers, repeating signs, numbers 11 11 1 11 22 22 3 3 3, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
It could be anything. You could actually even give them a name, and if you give them a name, that name could come up as well. So you'd be surprised at how often you get signs.
If somebody says, this baby I'm going to have is Cynthia, and you lose that baby and you continue to talk to Cynthia, and then you have another baby and that baby is born, is there any confusion if you name that second one that same name or
No. So
okay.
actually, I will say, if you have lost a child and then you get pregnant and you have a child, the chances are that child that you lost is now returning back in the new child. If you're saying, hey, Cynthia, 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 and then you have another child, it wouldn't surprise me if that was Cynthia's soul returning back.
Okay. And that also leads me to the next question. So in my case, the losses that I had, I knew were girls. I
Mm-hmm.
had boys is what I actually came in. So those names obviously are different, but the souls, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, they don't have a gender when
They have
they're
zero
there.
gender. And that brings me into just a little thing right now. We're having a lot of souls that are saying, I don't identify with being male or female. And that is because they are so spiritually connected into that who they are in that soul allegiance and alignment of who they are, that they don't identify with a gender. They are a soul. Does that make sense?
Yes. So they could still, my son could still be the same soul as the girl baby that I lost,
Absolutely.
but then came in once in the physical form as a male.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because he probably has a role to fill in your life.
I'm kind of going off track now because this is going down a different thing. In my case, again, I have had mediums say that there's a baby here that wants to tell you you need to have more fun and, a baby that you lost, they're saying, or I guess they say, have you lost a baby? There's one here. And oftentimes it will say that it's a girl. It's
Mhm.
rather than just the baby. So do they identify that so that we recognize that that was the one that we lost, or why would they identify themselves as a girl or boy in
They
like a mediumship type reading?
so it's exactly for that reason. So they identify it so you can recognize
Okay.
that person. You see, so it's like, let's just say, you know, I'll take my grandfather, for instance. My grandfather died at the age of 86 with no hair. Now, he often comes back with hair because that's how he wants to be. But I don't recognize him because he's got hair. So they're like, oh no, this guy has bald hair, yada, yada. And so they have to tell me how I'm going to recognize him. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. And also to that, another question that I had, not from Megan, but was they often come in with someone else. So like somebody else holding them. Like your grandmother's here and she's holding the baby or something like that. Is that common, or is that, why would that be?
So it is common because if you remember right at the very beginning when I said, often we connect in with the person who's lived a life. And so the person who's lived a life, they're going to come back in, they're not attached to the earth plane. They are attached. And so they come back in this attached form. The baby that hasn't come, they're not really attached to this earth plane. And so
Mhm.
they're actually being led by the grandmother, the mother, whoever it is,
Okay.
in order to actually make that person go, hey, I've got your baby. And it's also comforting to you to say, hey, you know what? My grandmother's got my baby. She was a great grandma. And I know that my baby's safe.
Right. Okay. Do the spirit babies carry any messages about future pregnancies or the family's path forward?
Yes, they often do. They will often say, he either, all right, so I'm coming back, which tells me there's going to be another pregnancy. Or they will say, don't worry, it's not your time. And they'll actually help the person. So if it's not their time to have a child, or if they're not going to be having a child, and then it will be said. And at that point, then it will be a case of they're just going to help them forward. They're going to help them try to navigate their way forward.
And you mentioned earlier about like maybe the relationship's not good or their job's too stressful or something like that. I've seen where people are living in New York City and the spirit baby is like, I don't want to
Yeah.
be here and you need to move to, a quieter
Ohio.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that normal to get those types of, because I don't get that, super often about, that specific of things. Can that be normal, or can they, I guess, request those types of messages to get clarity on things?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say a spirit is going to tell you what to do, but they will definitely turn around and say, hey, now is not the right time. Now, obviously, if you ask me, hey, why isn't it the right time? I'm like, well, you know what? You've got a really stressful job. This is what's going to happen. And there could be a variety of different reasons. But yes, the spirit will sometimes not come in because for instance, you might be putting off that job change, job change, job change. Sometimes the universe is just going to make that job change happen. And then the child comes in.
Right.
Again, I had it today with the client where, she lost a child. And I said, it's going to happen when you change your job. And she's like, my job has been stressing me out. I've been wanting to leave for God knows how long. I went, well, leave your job, so
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Um, Can the parents establish their own connection with the spirit baby? I know you talked about speaking to them earlier. Are there practices or rituals that you recommend for parents who wish to communicate with them?
Yes. I would absolutely maybe create a little box. And this is what I've done with a lot of people. I'll create a little keepsake box
Mm-hmm.
with all the things that they need, whatever it might be. And then what I would do is have special moments, sit, meditate, talk to them, write letters to them, celebrate their birthdays, maybe, different days, different things, and then honor them and see them not as, oh, I lost my child, but as in, I've now got an extra helper on the other side. And I think it's got to be seen as a very, very positive situation, which in a very negative situation, it has to be positive. And I think that would actually help them.
And also, do they recognize that the spirit baby was, or the soul was around them prior to getting pregnant as well? And then,
Yeah. The spirit baby is often around them prior to them getting pregnant. Yeah. And mom can often feel it. Wow, I know something's going to shift. There's a change. Yeah.
mhm. Okay. And then how do you see your role as a medium in facilitating communication between a grieving mother and her spirit baby? What responsibilities, or if any, do you feel in the process?
So there are always responsibilities. I've helped thousands of women in this process. This is not an uncommon theme. And actually having my own situation as well, having lost a child, you actually think you're more sensitive to it yourself. And then so when it is that, there are questions that I ask spirit baby. First of all, are you okay? Well, yes. Who are you with? What happened? What was the reason? And so what I'm hoping to do is help their grieving, because in a grieving mom, they're constantly questioning, did I do anything wrong? Was there something I could have changed? There's all this what, when, why, how, who.
Right.
So I ask the questions that sometimes the grieving mom is not ready to ask themselves verbally,
Right.
and that's when I will come out with it, and I'll ask, and hopefully I'll get given the answers. So therefore the grieving mom is really, kind of getting the answers that she needed without even asking the questions.
Right. Okay. What role do spirit babies play in the spiritual journey of their parents? And do they have a specific purpose or lesson for the parents to learn?
Yeah, so obviously, we all have a life path and a plan that we have to follow, or that we do follow. And sometimes the spirit babies are there to actually change the pathway of someone's life, or to change the course of their life. And I do feel that these pregnancies and these spirit babies come in to actually help navigate that situation. And there's lots of different reasons, and if they choose not to come into the earth plane, they're going to stay over there guiding you. They will always be part of your team of helpers.
Right. And I think it may not be clear in that moment, or even,
It never is. It never is.
right. But as you move past in time, I think it starts to become a little bit more clear, right? Once you
Yeah.
start to heal.
And healing is the main part. With anyone going through grief, I always say, I don't want you to have a reading much before the first 3 months of you losing someone, because in that place you are in this desperation, and you can't see the bigger picture. And it's the bigger picture that we have to experience and explore.
Right. Experiences with spirit babies. Can you share any particular poignant or memorable experiences you had with spirit babies? How did these experiences impact the grieving mother?
Oh my gosh. Every impacts the grieving mom in such a special way. It's never negative. One, I will talk about one that has been a termination. And the more I actually spoke to the child and I said, hey, it's okay. I wasn't meant to be coming through. That actually inspired the grieving mom, who was grieving still after 10 years, to actually talk about it and to actually help other people. And then there was another woman who lost, I think she'd lost maybe 4 or 5 children in different stages of their their, gestation. Each time I said it's serving a purpose. I said, this is serving a purpose. And what we actually did is we went back into past life for her. And, and the reason why she actually said, I'm vowing not to have children in this physical life. And I said, we need to rework that. And I said, it's the same soul that just keeps coming, that just keeps coming, that keeps coming. And she said to me, I said, let's rework this. So we did a past life regression. We cleared it all out. And then 3 months later, she told me she was pregnant. She said, I'm not telling anybody. And that baby came alive to light. That little boy came to light.
And I love that because the people that come to me have said, I have tried everything, right? They've done all the physical world, 3D world things. And that's where I say, let's find if there's something else spiritually that could be blocking this, because it may be something that it's not going to be supplement related. It's not going to be your diet. It's not going to be any of those things. And sometimes this is where the magic happens to unfold this beautiful experience of really healing not only this life, but past lives, So thank you for sharing that.
All the time. Yeah.
Cultural experiences. How do cultural or religious beliefs influence the way you communicate with spirit babies? Are there variations in how different spirits are perceived?
I think
Interesting.
culturally and religiously, a lot of people have their beliefs, but if they are now coming to a medium and they are coming to a medium to get help, then I'm always going to respect someone's religious belief. Like if they're Catholic or if they're Jewish or if they're Muslim or if they are, Hindu or Sikh, those are the, or if they're Buddhist, those are the big ones. Catholic and Christian I can deal with, but and Jewish and all of that I can deal with because it's my common, I deal with it all the time. But when I'm dealing with Sikh, Hindu, Muslim, Buddhism, when I'm dealing with that culture, they have a very, very specific way of thinking about things. And when they have stepped into my world and respected my views and respected me as a medium, I have absolute respect for them, but I talk at it from my point of view. And then I ask them to explain what it means to them in their culture. And then we have that, we work that way. But if they've come to a medium now, then they are ready to embrace an alternative side to things.
Right. They're already open.
Yeah, they're already.
Just by showing up. Yeah. Healing through communication. How does talking to spirit babies help in the healing process for mothers and fathers? What transformation have you witnessed in your clients?
Oh my gosh, I've witnessed such massive transformation. Just having the communication, one, gives somebody else hope. Okay. One, that life is going to continue. Two, that they're going to see their spirit baby. But the other part of it is that they can start changing their own life and say, often it's the fact that they've become a much better person, or they've stepped up, or they're doing charity work. There's so many things that I've seen. Communication is going to help in so many ways. First of all, with grieving, then hope, then in just their own spiritual practices and alignment of where they are in their own soul.
Yeah. And I've witnessed the restoration of hope. And when you have the hope, that changes your nervous system, right? That your cortisol, everything like goes in line with a different vibration in your body rather than being in that fight or flight state all the time, because your parasympathetic turns back on, and there's many ways that it domino effects, I think. How do you approach conversations about miscarriage with the spirit baby? Are there any sensitivities or considerations when discussing this loss with the spirit?
No, not at all. That's a very human factor, the spirit,
And do they ever not come in? Because I've spoken to mediums where
sometimes
I really wanted my babies to come in and they didn't come.
Yeah, sometimes they don't come in. And, I always say to the person, do you have any questions? And if they want to come and if you want it, I always embrace it. Ask me. Because there may be, remember that the more dominant people that are going to come in are often those that have been on the earth plane. The spirit babies have no connection or attachment to the earth plane. They have an attachment to you, but not the earth plane. And
Mhm.
so I think it's important that the client asks, hey, I lost a child. Is it possible you can communicate with them?
Okay. And then to that point, if they have had losses and then live births, is a medium able to tell, oh yes, your living son number two is actually your miscarriage number one or
Yeah,
whatnot?
I've been able to say, oh, and it's happened before, and I'll just give you several examples, but one where a woman's daughter passed away, and she passed away when she was, I don't know, probably mid-20s. And I said, but your son now just had a child. And she's like, yes. And I said, look into the eyes and look and see if you see your daughter back. She said, I say that all the time. I said, that's your daughter
Oh,
coming back. And she's like, oh my God. And then, when it obviously a spirit baby hasn't come to the earth plane, but it's almost an innate feeling. When you're pregnant, you have a connection to your baby that you can't connect to anything else like that. And it's just a feeling that you will be able to look at your baby and go, oh my God, I feel so connected to this child. So for me, I would always say, trust that feeling, trust it, because you're
mhm.
always right.
Yeah. And I think that brings a lot of comfort to people to know that, like you said earlier, that they are trying to come into you and they're wanting to come back again. How do you handle situations where a spirit baby doesn't communicate or is silent? You said to have the parents ask specifically. Does it mean anything? And how do you support parents in such cases?
So in that case, when they don't come through, I always say, ask,
Mhm.
ask for it. If they are not coming through and if I'm not feeling it, I will give them, say, it could be because of this, it could be because of that. But I try to at least give hope, and that's all that matters, as
Mhm.
long as I'm giving hope.
Okay. Are there any common misconceptions about spirit babies that you encounter?
Not really. I mean, some people, there are in the medium world, some people will say, oh, well, they're much higher vibration. And so therefore they're not going to come back, or their vibration is, it's not aligned with you. So you're not going to see them in heaven. I don't agree with any of that personally. I know that some mediums will say that. I personally will never, because I want to believe that I'm going to see my spirit baby.
Right. Me too. I think you touched on this already of how do you know is my baby at peace to seek some reassurance that your baby's spirit is at rest or in a positive place.
They're always going to be at rest and in a positive place, because the spirit world is just a positive and restful place. And that's what we have to always trust.
And I think that that's important again for the late term losses
Yeah.
and or where you have to choose a termination based on, something going wrong or whatnot,
Yeah, absolutely.
not to carry that guilt yourself that they're okay.
That's the worst thing to carry, and I've seen it. So many people, they've lost their children late in their term. They're like, what did I do? What happened? And I'm like, it's you can't carry the guilt, because it's in that guilt that it's going to cause your body this massive panic. And that's when we have problems.
Often, again, you mentioned this, we ask ourselves, what did we do wrong? Why did this happen to me? And are there times where it is just, of course, I believe that it is nothing specific that we do wrong physically on this planet. I mean, but is there something to say to the expected parents that would be, around that spirit contract of, they will come when they're meant to come or whatever? I don't know what the words are, but how do we get them to know that it isn't this and or why did it happen to me? Because my thought with my first and second miscarriage was, oh my gosh, I wanted this so bad. If it was so meant to be, why did it get taken away from me?
I like to say to people, it's not about when, it's not about the exact time, it's the fact that it's sometime.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you're meant to have the baby, it's going to come at some point. And I'll tell you my story. How's this? Tell you my story.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I had a child. I was 25 when I had my son, and pretty much straight afterwards, I got pregnant again, and I lost that child. And everyone kept saying, you're gonna have a daughter, you're gonna have a daughter, you're gonna have a daughter. And I'm like, I'm not gonna have a daughter. And then I had a and then I had a hysterectomy. And and I'm like, I still have one child. I lost a child. And they're like, but I see you having a daughter. I see you having a daughter. I'm like, there ain't no way this body's having a child. This body cannot even carry a child. She has nothing in there. And so that really was hard for a long time because I grieved the loss of the children that I could have had.
Sure.
And then I met a guy, and the guy, his wife died, and I adopted his daughter. That child
Beautiful.
came to me in a very, very unique way. Funny thing is, there's so many similarities between me and her. She's Puerto Rican and I'm English, coming from a whole different space. But that child, and she's 21, but she brings me so much joy. She's my biggest pain in my butt, but I love her so much that I can't actually ever imagine that I didn't actually pop her out of myself.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? So if you're meant to have the child, it's going to come to you in some way, shape, or form, whether or not you actually physically carried the child or not.
Right.
She is my greatest. I mean, I have a son who's my biological son, but she's one of my greatest pride and joys.
That's awesome. And thank you for sharing that, because so many people now are, told I have to have a egg donor or a sperm donor or something else, and they just can't even imagine not having that baby be so fully biologically theirs. And I'm like, but you will love them just the same,
I have to share. You will love that child exactly the same. I look at these things like you are my daughter, just bracelets and things like that. And man, I just love her so much. And it was hard initially because my whole life changed when his wife died. That I'm like, oh, and they weren't even divorced, they were separated. And I'd met her.
How old was the daughter?
She was 14. And I mean, trust me, she hated me. She'd been taught to hate me because
That's a tough age to bring a girl in.
yeah, 14 and grieving.
Yeah.
Man. And then, when she asked me when she was 17, she said, will you adopt me? And I adopted her at 17. Yeah. And I'm telling you, my mom and people say, oh, do you have favorites? So surely you favor your son. And I went, actually, I don't. I don't see any difference. It's like my husband will say, yeah, my daughter. And I'll say, our daughter.
Right.
Because she is.
Right. That's
So
awesome.
I really encourage people. I know where they're at, and I know their story, and I know their heartache, and I know all of that. But if it's meant to be, it's going to be.
Right. And stay open to the possibilities.
Stay open. Yeah.
Is there anything that I can do to honor my spirit baby, to find meaningful ways to honor their memory and or to invite them back?
Yeah, I think, like I said before, create a memory box, create a ritual, start journaling, start writing letters to them, talk to them, have a specific song, and do it, maybe once a week or once a month. It doesn't have to be something that you have to do every single day, because what we do is we stay in the past then. We want to keep moving them forward. But I would really embrace it, like silly little things. And it might be something silly, but having something of significance like this is significant for somebody who I lost, but having something significant that you can put out, and every time you look at, you think of them. I think it's really important to have just that little something.
Right. I call it a faith purchase to
absolutely.
be thinking of them. So back to the other question about why did this happen to me and karmic reasons behind the loss, kind of how we were talking about before with the past lives of something happening. Is that common that the, karmic things and past lives, some people think they're one and the same, some people think that they're different. Is that common that those types of things get intervened into the losses and or the children being delayed to coming in?
Yeah, so karmic reasons can absolutely be part of that. It's the fact that they're going to come in because maybe, you're not in the right time and space and energy, or, it karmically, it's not in the right, you might not be living in the right time or place or whatever. But I do think that sometimes we have to learn the lesson. For instance, it happened, a friend of mine, her daughter lost a baby that came to the earth plane, and less than a month it died. And I said, it's going to come back. I said, I want you to know he's coming back. And she said, you know what? I just realized that all that baby knew was love. And they turned to their faith. They turned to each other. They strengthened their relationship. They recommitted to each other. And now she's pregnant again. And I think what it did on a karmic level is it made her say, I'm not happy in my job. I'm not happy here. I need to do this. We need to do that. And what it did is it bonded them stronger. And,
Right.
And I think there is a karmic space in that.
Okay. I think so too. And then is there lessons in every loss, either to gain the perspective of spiritual or personal growth, or is there sometimes where there's not a lesson?
No,
It just happens.
there's a lesson in everything.
Okay.
Always.
Is there anything I need to let go of or hold on to understand what aspects of the experience you should release or things that you
Yeah.
should keep as part of your healing?
I'm going to tell you, let go of the way it should be.
Hmm. That's
Let go
huge.
of the way that it should be. Let
Hmm.
go of the way that society wants you to believe. Let go of all these preconditioned opinions, whatever thoughts, feelings, whatever it is. And trust in that space. That's the thing that needs to be let go of.
Right.
Because people might say, oh, you know what? It was this or it was that, or it's their belief. No one actually knows it other than you. And I
Hmm.
think it's really important for that person to trust in themselves at that point.
And I think to trust the soul,
Oh, completely. Yeah.
because I hear all the time, well, I was supposed to have, well, me too. I always thought I was going to have a girl, and here I am with three boys.
Yeah.
But, they wanted to have their baby in the year of the dragon, or they thought their baby was going to be a boy or a girl or whatever. And they have an idea or an expectation of what it is that they want it to be. But I don't think that the souls have any concept of that.
We have to let go
So,
of expectations.
right. And once we let go of that, that allows the constriction of what we're putting on these souls to
Right.
say it's okay for you to come when you're ready and in whatever way you're ready to
That's
come.
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Is there anything else that you feel that we missed that
Oh,
people should know about losses? And I'm just thinking of someone that we'd spoken about a couple of whenever we spoke a few times ago, who had a late term loss that was really traumatizing to them. And that's really common for a lot of people, that the later it gets, the more traumatic it is. And of course, stillbirths and all of that as well. But what about for those people that, they've been feeling their baby kicking, and they're even more so attached in some ways because they've seen them in the ultrasounds and all of this, or given birth to them, quite actually. How do they need to hear in this healing process for them to move on and not to hold on to it so strongly, and not to make it such a part of their identity, I guess, because I think that that's where I see a lot of times that it's holding them back from the future soul to come in, because they're identifying so much with the happened to me. And not to say they're playing a victim to it, because that's not it, but they're just grieving.
I think one of the greatest things that they actually do is embrace the loss that they have. They can't just wipe it away, next up they go. They've got to embrace the loss that they have. And that obviously some people may have to give it a name, and may have to even, give it a funeral and things like this. So you just never know. And in that space, it's time. Don't rush it. Don't actually say, what could I have done? What could I have changed? If I hadn't have been this stressed, if I hadn't have done this, all these shoulda, woulda, couldas, not going to change anything. What it does is it brings an awareness, and it brings an awareness to whatever might be going on. And I always recommend sitting in meditation, sitting and writing and journaling through this. Get support, get help, go to little support groups, find a support group online, help other people going through it as well. Share your story, because even though it is so raw, so difficult, we heal through helping others. We heal through talking. We heal through embracing them. The last thing we want to do is bottle it away and shove it under a carpet or shove it away in the back of the closet. And I know people do, but it's actually really unhealthy. And because what that just does is it's a lot of illness, it causes a lot of other problems in our body, and that's what causes us real difficulties. So work with someone like you, work with a grief counselor, go and see a medium, and really establish the fact that there is a lesson in it, and as awful it is, there is a lesson. And I really encourage them to not give up hope, give themselves hope in the fact that you are going to get through this. You
right.
are. And it really is so tough, but it's going to work.
Yeah. I promise you will get to the other side.
Yeah, always.
Always. One thing we spoke about too, that spurred this whole conversation up initially, was when I get this downloads from spirit babies, it's really short. And you mentioned that oftentimes it is short because they haven't been here on the physical plane. So we don't have a lot of references for them to have as much as somebody who's lived here and whatnot. So people who are going to a spirit baby reader, let's say, is there certain questions too that they should ask? Because if they are, let's say, paying for an hour of reading just in regards to this spirit, getting information from the spirit baby, what can their expectation, or what should their expectation be from that experience?
So their expectation should be, don't expect too much, first of all. So, let's say they were paying for an hour, then I would say, if you can get a communication with your spirit baby for about 20 minutes, you're doing really good. You're doing really good. Some of the questions that you may want to ask are, was this a karmic lesson? Did we have a past life together? If so, what was it? What can I do to embrace your memory and to keep you alive with me still on this earth plane? They can ask, are they going to be with me when it's my time to pass? What have I got to learn from this experience? Are you coming back? Is there anything I can do to help you to come back? Or are you complete on the other side? Who are you with? And a lot of people ask me, what do they do all day? And I'm like, well, they probably hang out, and they've probably got other lessons, and they're probably a spirit guide, and ask them what their role is that they're playing now. I've had that many times, and I've said, oh, what's your role? And they're like, well, I help other babies come over. And I'm like, oh, wow, And so I think it's important that they have a list of questions, and truly, if they're going with a spirit baby reader, which I think is very, very important, I think it's important for the medium to be open to these questions. And it's important for the mum to ask the questions too, because that's the unique part of it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's good, unless you can think of anything else that we missed.
I can't. I feel like I really feel like we've gone through it. I think this is awesome.
I know. Thanks, Lisa, so much. I'm so grateful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
My
Thank you. Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
You're welcome. All right.
Okay. Talk to you soon. Have a good trip. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Friends with Fertility. We hope that you found the stories, insights, and tips as inspiring and informative as we did. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. Your friends with fertility are here for you. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to follow us on social media for updates and more fertility resources. Until next time, stay hopeful and keep believing in your journey, and know that we are sending you lots of love.